Good morning. We're back at 7 a.m. Pacific time here at Dragonchain headquarters. And, excuse me, we're at 223 million plus transactions running continuously since 9 a.m. yesterday. And I'm super pleased to be joined by Jonathan Olson, who is our patent attorney. And he is going to go through some really fascinating stuff. And I hope you're seeing this Instruments of War up on the screen. So this is not going to be your usual patent dry. We've been talking about our interchain interoperability. And now we're going to get the legal technical details from Jonathan.
Well, I'm going to try to not let it be dry. But anyway, it's kind of patents are a thing, so it's a little different way to look at your creations, at your accomplishments, and kind of formalize it. But I thought I'd put Smaug up on there to set the tone as to why you take your trade secrets and turn them into a patent. Of course, a large majority of almost every company, the value is tied up in trade secrets, but what Dragonchain has done, and what a lot of companies at a certain point, they need to trade those secrets away and get in their place these heavy instruments to block a competitor right out in the open, versus just trying to keep everything behind locked doors. So today I'm going to talk about these two first patents that have been granted. One pertains to Interchain, the other pertains to Dragon Den, and they're shown in red and blue, and I'll try to keep this brief and brisk for you. But these cover pages are where you can see the inventorship for each, the dates. What's interesting about one of these, I think it's the one on your left, is that it was granted 108 days after filing. So I think this is actually the fastest granted blockchain patent in US history.
And for people who haven't been through a patent process, what really is a patent, and why do we really care about them?
A patent, so you are, it's the government, and in fact the Constitution established a system where, in order to incentivize people to do invention and to reveal their inventions, teach it to the public, you get a monopoly. Normally monopolies are illegal, but you can get a monopoly, a lawfully authorized monopoly, in exchange for your good teaching to the public. So, and if you do a good job, you can get a really good patent. So that's kind of the deal.
Are patents like open source legal documents?
Yeah, you could say that. They're not self-enforcing. It's not illegal to, unlike say copyright. It's illegal to steal someone's movie or their song,
Right.
but it's not, and it's illegal to use their trademark. It's actually a crime. The FBI and the police care, but it's not illegal to infringe a patent. It's something you have to enforce yourself.
Huh.
And so that makes it a very kind of expensive, heavy artillery kind of a combat mode, and so they involve a lot more thinking things through than other kinds of intellectual property tools.
Cool. Thank you.
So these two were very carefully and strategically selected from a broad array of innovations at Dragonchain. So I'll move forward through this. This is really terribly dry material, I've got to believe, even for software people. There's syntax, and it's just, but I'll try to keep it brisk. And here is my quick self-portrait. I'm the guy whistling, pushing the wheelbarrow through hell, and for those of you who can't see, the devils are in the background of this Far Side cartoon. And one of them says to the other one, we're just not reaching that guy. But anyway, I'll come back to this guy. So the interchain related patent, which is called Distributed Ledger Interaction Systems and Methods, includes this for figure 1, and it has the middle of the 3 nodes. We're a little compressed here, but the middle rectangle represents the Dragonchain system, and the others on the outside might be, for example, public blockchains. One might be Neo, one might be Bitcoin.
Bitcoin,
Yeah.
Ethereum, Ethereum Classic,
Yeah.
and Binance now.
And Binance now. So this is kind of just a basic symbology that we begin with to try to bring the readers up to speed. And the readership of a patent is the public. We're trying to teach the public how to use the core technology of the business. So that's and it's kind of a daunting thought, and a very deliberate kind of a thing to do. All right, and this is for those of you who ever look at this patent, which is 10,135,607. That's patent number 10,135,607. We'll call that the 607 patent. Figure 6 has some key items of interest. This on node 170 has a series of blocks. Within the blocks there are elements. Everything is a lot of objects are shown with a dashed rectangle and numbers, and part of this is to facilitate translation into other languages, because you need to do that. Patents are a country by country element, so far we have issued U.S. patents, and but those can easily be expanded to other countries. And getting a little bit more toward the core of what this blockchain patent, the interchain related technology, we have figure 14, which has 4 steps. These don't necessarily correspond with what is in the claims. And so I'm going to show you really briefly how to read a patent like a patent attorney would, which means first you look at, you maybe glance briefly at the cover page, start to glance briefly at the figures, but really gray matter is soft and mushy. It doesn't last very long unless you're here and you're doing a 24-hour marathon. I don't know how you guys are holding it together. I had a nice night's sleep last night. But when you're reading a patent, I recommend going straight to what's most important while your mind is still at its best. And so it's important to be able to identify a thing called an independent claim. The things on the last pages of a patent are, they defined the metes and bounds of the invention. And so the independent, I'd like to call your attention in the lower right corner here, I have claim 2, which says the transistor-based distributed ledger interaction method of claim 1. So this is not an independent claim. It can't stand on its own. It's a slice of the pie. The pie is claim 1. And it's not the only independent claim, but it's one that doesn't refer to the others. And so you can forget about claim 2 for a while until you understand what claim 1 is about. So and the way to save your brain for the few independent claims if you're going to look at a patent. And this one has the way to read an independent claim is like this. You say, nothing is covered by this claim unless it has a transistor-based distributed ledger interaction method comprising. And then nothing is covered by this claim unless it's. So this is kind of a little mantra to assist lay people in going through and figuring out what this patent covers. Now you may think this is the province of lawyers, but this is exactly what a programmer, engineer, investor, executive should devote their energies to. If you want to know what's in a patent, never mind the abstract, never mind the title, go to the independent claims. So this one, if you get past the basic steps of recording and executing, there are 3 particular sub-steps, and they're indented in this. One of them is accepting an expenditure of a special purpose cryptographic utility token belonging to an entity who transmitted a request for an execution of said smart contract. See, it's a little dry already. You've got to work through it. It requires a certain fortitude and a certain freshness. But I want to call your attention to the fact that figure 14, the flowchart that most closely tracks that claim, doesn't have this expending a token. So this is relatively more summarized from a technology standpoint. If you can find the claim that the flowchart that corresponds most closely to the claim, you can maybe get to the heart even a little bit faster. At least in the case of Figure 14. So after the accepting and the expenditure, we've got the iteratively monitoring one or more public nodes for one or more requester specified phenomena of interest. So this is a watcher, wherein said one or more requester specified phenomena of interest include first and second asset transfers from a requester specified digital wallet. So you're monitoring a wallet. This has to translate to mean something in your world. Am I making sense here?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's something recognizable in the legalese. Next, and this is the last listed step, we're transmitting to one or more mining rig nodes a result of the transaction of said second smart contract, partly based on the cryptographic utility node data, and partly based on the distributed ledger destination being implemented. So we're sending things to mining rig nodes. So what does that tell us?
I'm sorry, I lost the context.
The fact that mining rig nodes are part of what's happening here, they're a destination,
right,
is something that's going to be present in certain kinds of transactions.
Right.
So proof of work, right?
Mining rig nodes would be for Bitcoin, sure.
Signifies Bitcoin. So claim 1 has a meaningful limitation. It doesn't extend beyond things that are recorded on mining rig nodes. But if you're interchain, so you might have a non-proof of work blockchain public blockchain over here,
like Dragonchain, and it can go to the next one. I get it.
And then when you're recording the hash over elsewhere, then you're finally getting around to writing on a mining rig node.
So what you're saying is it's very specific, but in the same time it's limited to the patent is for taking it from one chain and going to another mining rig chain.
Right, a mining.
Okay.
So a proof of work node is the destination recited here. You're not going to infringe this claim, the literal terms of this claim, until you're actually sending things out to a set of mining rig nodes, aka.
So if someone were transmitting data between two web servers, it's not a big deal. But to a mining rig, that's something that is in Dragonchain's patent.
Right.
Got it.
And more particularly, Claim 1 is limited to those kinds of proof of work contexts where, as I defer to what's recited here. What matters is what's in the claim. And you can read the claim. That's what I'm hoping people will take away from this. Okay, so then let's briefly touch on some of the salient points of the Dragon Den patent before we get before these things get too dull. So we'll jump straight to Figure 11 in this case, where basically a trust-related metric can be seen in the case of the middle broad swooping curve, beginning back in 2017 when somebody started acquiring that trust. Over time, it increased. It appears to be logarithmic here, but we're on a logarithmic scale. So anyway, 161 is what I would call an early adopter in this middle curve. Then 2018, 2019, this entity is steadily gaining trust. At the end of 2019, it's got about 500, and this could be DDSS or
Dragon Days of Slumber.
Dragon Days of Slumber score, or other similar kinds of metrics that measure clout that can be used. Also in this graphic, we have in 2020, late 2020, is posited someone who was rapidly gaining trust, maybe because they were holding a ton of dragons or doing some other qualifying activity or circumstance that would cause them to accelerate quickly, but then they suddenly changed their trajectory. Maybe they sold off their most of their dragons, and they now gain trust at a slower rate. So those are just kind of explaining to the readers of the patent the manner of a manner of escalation that is covered. Now, this brings me to an important point about patents. A patent shouldn't just cover the subject, activity, or product. It should also cover competitors. That's important. Okay, so these are other depictions, 18, 19, and 20, of 3 different participants in an ecosystem, where 18, what's shown in figure 18, is one entity over the course of several weeks, week 31 through 37, steadily gaining trust. In figure 19 we have, okay, so figure 18 might represent I'm gonna start mixing
Go for it.
fictional modalities here. Figure 18 represents Chancellor Palpatine. You remember who Chancellor Palpatine was? Okay, who's Chancellor Palpatine?
The Emperor in Star Wars.
Okay, I screwed it up. This 18 is Chancellor Valorum. Do you remember who Chancellor Valorum is? He's the real deal, the nice guy, the one who was in place before the Sith Master snuck his way in and became the Emperor. So Chancellor Valorum, doing what he should in figure 18, he's a good guy, and he's doing what good guys do. Figure 19 is Emperor Palpatine. He starts off at going along like a normal person, but then suddenly, here at the beginning of week 36, he buys 1 billion dragons, and so he starts increasing his score dramatically. Similarly, figure 20 has a third participant in the marketplace, behaving like a good guy. Or maybe 19 is a good guy, but something happened where this person is now going to become a dominant player rapidly. But it isn't instantaneous. Under the Dragonchain system and Dragon Den and similar kinds of contexts, the fastest a new entrant can grow isn't infinite. You can't just buy your way to the top. Figure 21 now demonstrates the shared power, where the Chancellor Palpatine is shown in the bottom, suddenly going from about 10% to about 85%. But these other participants, like Chancellor Valorum, are still hold a share, and so they are going to be in a position, I guess what you'd call it a whistleblower position, where if the checks in your L1 through L5 architecture are not passing what they're supposed to be checking, then at least there's always some chance that
there's a check and balance in there. There's always someone.
It is. Even though Chancellor Palpatine now wants to do all the work, trust me, I'll handle it. And Chancellor Valorum, maybe he's discredited to some degree, diluted, but he's still present, and that the risk that Chancellor Valorum may check in at some points and become a whistleblower is an ever-present systemic influence in the marketplace.
Yep.
In the ecosystem.
So if I could jump in for a second. So if you watched Joe's presentation on time earlier, this is the case where someone came in and bought 1 million time all at once, and let's just say they were $1 each. The Palpatine character would have to have a lot of funds and a lot of money to do that, whereas Valorum bought 1,000 and held those dragons, when we're now calling Dragon Days of Slumber Time, over that long period. So this is the legal description of how that works and how it's defensible, because we're the only ones allowed to do this and allowed to do this type of connectivity and interchain, which is really fascinating. So you're really unpacking this from a very different perspective because everybody's been looking at it from sort of the mining and technical perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
So in this earlier graphic, we had trust in figure 11, we had trust growing as a function of years. Here in figures 18 through 21, we're showing it growing over a factor of weeks during which a precipitous event happens. The detailed flowchart pertaining to the claim of interest, the most closely detailed flowchart in case you want to get online and study this a little more closely, is figure 25. But of course, if you're going to try to understand the real meaning of the asset, you're going to look at the claims, and claim 16 is one of the independent claims. It's got steps of associating, allowing, applying, transmitting, accepting, and triggering. So that, that's actually something that, with some study, you could understand exactly what was covered by this patent. However, there's one other factor, lest you think that you're free to just step around what is within the boundaries of Claim 16. Please be advised that it's customary to prosecute outward. So you, in the initial stages of negotiation with a bureaucratic entity like the Patent Office, they'll give you a certain amount, a dinner plate of scope. But then as you negotiate, they can see clearly that you're entitled to more of a banquet level of ownership. So just because you study one patent, you better understand the whole portfolio. If you're gonna try to imitate, which is, to a degree, imitating is allowed. Once a patent expires, it's allowed. If you can do it, if you can imitate but not be within the scope of the claims, that is allowed. But you've got to keep an eye on the whole portfolio. And I would like to express some words of praise to Dragonchain, because relative to some clients who trust me to carry their precious thing for them, Joe Rotes and the other folks at Dragonchain took a heavy interest in what I was doing, which from my perspective, it makes the job a bit harder on one level. I had to actually learn this stuff. People were looking over my shoulder, asking questions. That is exactly how you want to treat your Sherpa if you're going to go through a horrendous place like the Patent Office. Don't send them, go with them. So, but just because you have an instrument of war doesn't mean you have to use it. These things create order, they create appropriate prestige in the entryway to your office. It was suggested that I might want to comment on, briefly and broadly, on how attorneys look at blockchain developments. And basically, from the dawn of time, we've had a lot of unworthy proof of stake type evidence. Where instead of the rule of law, you had a person in charge. You had the rule of the king or whoever had authority, and it's all to the good to have the rule of law. Even the best of us, for the most part, would like to have the rule of law, and I think that blockchain is a valuable way to restore that. I'm hopeful that as we go forward, that blockchain can be a positive influence. It's a lot of change. It's a lot of work. Attorneys like to keep busy. These are blockchain creates powerful new tools and a certain level of accountability that is delightful. Okay, and then one final thought, a hot place with legal overtones. Here is a map of hell. It even looks like a patent drawing, does it not?
I defer to you.
All right, let's just take a moment then, and we're going to visit the patent office. So this is USPTO.gov. Clicking on patents. And I'm gonna do the advanced search.
So this is a website that's open to anybody to search.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a government maintained website, USPTO.gov. It has patent searching capability, and I'm just gonna demonstrate that.
And it was clearly written in the 1990s.
Yes, yes. So looking at assignee name of Dragonchain, I'm going to hit search. So those are the two patents, the 829 and the 607. And if you follow this, you can get a full-text searchable version of this patent. This one doesn't have drawings to it, so you'd have to click on the images, or you can download whole PDFs of the patents that include the figures at Google Patents or pat2pdf.org, public websites that let you obtain the PDF copy.
Perfect.
That's all I have. Are there questions that might have come in? Is that too much to hope for?
No, I
I
think
think
we're
you answered
good.
the one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you,
for
Lauren.
sharing with us.
All right.
All right, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the video of my interview with Paul DiMarzio from the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance.